So let me, I just want to see if I can sum this up properly, because I feel like your story is a common story. We've heard it a million times. A Muslim who's brought into the Catholic Church by C.S. Lewis's secretary, studied theology and economics at Oxford, and now you don't believe Catholics should own stocks.
That's right. And
It's an everyday story. I've heard it a million times.
Run of the mill.
But first of all, C.S. Lewis's secretary, just let's start there, because it's like, really? So you were born in a Muslim household?
Well, my father was
Your father's Muslim.
Yeah,
okay.
He was born and raised in Jerusalem. So he's actually born in
Really?
the old city walls. His grandfathers had moved over. I mean, his ancestors moved, as far as we can tell, sometime in the 9th century, they moved over to Jerusalem.
That's as far back as you can go?
And we know that they were all clerics of some stripe or another, right? And so even as close as his grandfather was actually the Imam of Al-Aqsa Mosque.
What?
Which on the the site of the
This
Temple
story
Mount
gets better and
the
better.
Dome of the
So
Rock.
that's your grandfather, or his grandfather? Your great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather. My father's great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, was the mufti, of Jerusalem. So in other words, the bishop, I guess, would be the closest.
Oh, really?
Like that we have in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And so they were clerics, really, in academics going all the way back. My grandfather bucked the trend, and that was actually kind of an interesting reason why he did, is that his father was ousted from his position because of some tension with Kaiser Wilhelm as he was entering into Jerusalem. There's tension. He didn't want to let him in, and so what resulted was that he was replaced.
Kaiser Wilhelm won, in other words, as he so often did.
Yeah, right. And so my grandfather had to find something else to do.
Really?
And so he started giving tours to people coming to the Holy Land, and he actually, despite being a Muslim, went to a college to study New Testament archaeology, to be, actually be a pro at it, and created the first local travel agency in the Holy Land. And that was, a trend in a new direction for the family, quite an interesting one, I think. And then my father was raised up also in the hospitality industry, but when his arranged marriage kind of fell through. There's all these different steps in the negotiation process that they didn't come to actually getting a signed document, which is the ceremony, right? That he had some freedom to choose somebody else, and there just so happened to be this beautiful white woman from Michigan that was living in Jerusalem at the time.
This really is a common story. Man, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. Okay.
And that was my mom.
And why was she there? Why is your mom living in Jerusalem?
You know what? It's not that interesting of a reason. She was a study abroad student at Michigan State University, and she was studying hotel management. And so she thought, well, if I have an opportunity of studying international hotel management, why wouldn't I go to Jerusalem? That sounds like fun, right?
Yeah.
So she was working at the Seven Arches Hotel on
I have never been to Jerusalem. I'm ashamed to tell you
Not
that.
yet.
No, not yet. That's right.
There
Not
you
yet.
go.
Maybe this time next year.
And it's a very safe place to go. So,
well, I'm willing.
Despite what the news says. Yeah.
The flights are expensive. That's been my main problem.
And so she went over there and worked and met my dad, who could barely speak a lick of English at the time, but they kicked it off, and that's what happened. So he was a Muslim, and he was raised in this very traditional and I would say relatively powerful Muslim family in the old city. And she was a lapsed Catholic. That's almost even too generous to say. Her family, when she was 11 years old, left the church.
Oh yeah, so
over Humanae Vitae, and so, which is actually quite interesting, because my grandmother, who just passed away, may she rest in peace, had 8 kids at this time.
And she just was not taking this Humanae Vitae thing, huh? Wow.
At that point, it's like, 8 kids, just keep going, man. But for them, and I'll just say this as a tangential aside, because it's opening up a can of worms, is that they were hearing from the pulpit, my grandma and grandpa, they were hearing from the pulpit that the church was now accepting of contraception. And then all of a sudden, Humanae Vitae comes out and says the exact opposite. So they're hearing two different magisteria, right? That it's okay and it's not okay. Well, if there's a contradiction here, then it's not really Christ's church. No. Now, of course, there were underlying issues beyond that kind of technical piece, but that was something real for them and an excuse that they could kind of latch onto. And so when they were, my mom was 11 at the time, and so when she ran over to Jerusalem, it wasn't with any faith really that she was, or a real relationship with God.
Did they come back here? Is that what happened? They
met there, they married there, they lived there for some time, and then really in order to avoid the occupation, they moved to the States.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because those were horrible years then. After the late 1960s into 70s, those were horrible years in the Middle East.
They were really tough.
Okay, so Michigan, I guess a lot of Arab-speaking people or Arabic-speaking people come to Michigan.
That's right. Yeah, Dearborn in particular. They went over to they bounced around a few different areas in New York. But my dad, he received his undergraduate training at Bethlehem University, which at the time was unaccredited in the United States.
Oh, bummer!
And so he had to go through everything again. None of his classes transferred.
No transfers.
Isn't that crazy? And somehow he managed to complete a full BA degree in 18 months at Michigan State.
Good Lord!
Isn't that crazy? I couldn't imagine.
Wow.
So it's a bit quick.
Okay, so then you come along. So you're born in Michigan then?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
They kept bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, right. All right, so get us fast forward then. So you're Muslim, but from this very prominent Muslim family. But you're raised in the U.S. It's a mixed family.
Yeah.
And so, how attached are you to Islam? Like, do you?
Very little. Almost none. I would say. So I think it's fair enough to claim being born into a Muslim home, but it's not fair enough to say being a practicing Muslim. Right? Okay, and that's not true.
You didn't have your own prayer rug or anything
no.
I don't know what qualifies you as a Muslim, but
I think actively holding on to the faith. Actively believing it, and I think I was so confused. I'll never forget being 4 years old and realizing for the first time that my parents believed something different about who God was and what the universe was. Kids pick up on this stuff, right?
It's amazing, right?
How much they do, right?
Right.
And so my mom's praying in the name of Jesus because she has now become a Protestant. Years later on, from this, I'm skipping large swaths of the story here, but she becomes a Protestant, praying in the name of Jesus, and my dad just blows up about this. And of course, they pray differently. My mom's on her knees at the side of the bed. My dad's laying down. He's not a very practicing, Muslim at this point in his life. But when he does, it's different, right, than my mom does. But just the animosity that's felt in the household, I'll never forget.
So you felt that from really this is your beginning awareness of what life is.
But it's one of those images from childhood. Right. It's just so thick, right? It's just as if I was still there.
So were you in conflict about religion, about God? Or did you internalize this conflict?
I did, and they ended up sending me to a classical college prep Christian school, and this was kind of a K through 12 spa. We had our nice little uniforms, all that. Great school. I really appreciate it. Learned a lot. But the classical part, where they took the Greco-Roman world seriously, did have a pretty dominating experience on my mind. I'd say that being introduced to the pantheon of the pagan world, of all these different gods with all these different things. And I was so confused at the time. My mom believed something different. My dad believed something different. It seems like the
Romans and the Greeks believed something different. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much the same thing, actually, for them, right? And I thought, well, why? How do you even make a decision on this?
Right.
And I remember being something like 11 or 12 years old and thinking, I just don't have the capacity to make a decision on this. I'm going to have to punt on this for a few
Okay.
years.
So you reserved judgment.
I did. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I felt like I had to because it was such a
Well,
big
that
deal.
doesn't seem unreasonable
Right?
at 11 years old.
Mom,
Yeah. But you're reserving judgment. You're not making a decision that some make, which is all of this is baloney.
No.
You're reserving judgment to someday later make a decision.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
All
it
right.
was too important. It was obviously too important. And I don't think I could have articulated it that well at the time. But I think I could have said exactly that. This is just a bit too important not to know an answer to.
Okay.
And that's the extent of what I could have possibly said.
Would you say that you sought and searched, or would you say you just kind of let it marinate?
I really just punted. I just tried desperately not to think about it because I was getting pretty depressed over it. You know?
Okay. All right. So how do you end up with Walter Hooper, C.S. Lewis's secretary?
13, 14 years old, same school. We went through all of sacred scripture. Well, you know, it was a Protestant place, so they missed a few books in the Old Testament. And that was very transformative because it finally, even though I didn't believe it actively, I at least understood the larger arc of sacred history you know, in the Testaments. And that was very helpful. It's like, all right, at least I know what I'm getting my
It's like a
teeth
you
into.
are here kind of map.
Right. Yeah. So, or at least now I know what Christians believe, generally speaking, right?
Right.
And it was kind of at the end of that time, 14 moving into 15, where I actually did have a real experience of my sin. I was very convicted that the world was not as it should be, and I was an active part of ensuring that it wasn't. And that was something that was so helpful to being able to have a real ability to start answering some of these questions. Right?
Do you think that conviction was a natural part of your adolescence, or do you think there was a supernatural prompting, or you know, both? But do you see what I'm saying? Do you think that there was grace was pushing you to that? Because it kind of seems like a big insight for a 15-year-old.
Well, maybe, but I remember very clearly, it was kind of summer, right before my 15th birthday, going to a church with this girl I really liked at the time, and thinking and listening to this youth pastor who just kind of gave a challenge to all the kids that were there and saying, I challenge you just for 1 month. Don't listen to any bad music. Don't watch any bad movies. And I was kind of getting on a kick, you know, being like trying to be an athlete and stuff like that, about discipline and all that stuff. I said, you know, it's like, and he said, oh, and this is what made like really, you know, sunk the nail into the coffin was he said, I bet you guys can't do it. I was like, I will show you, you know.
A good youth pastor.
Yeah, I know. Now, like, thinking back, I was like, that was a really interesting choice that he made. But man, it worked for me. And so it was not for any kind of moral conviction or even exercise. I'd say it was purely one of discipline. And at the end of that month, I thought, oh my gosh, like there is something totally wrong with what's going on. Now I'd say it's like morally depraved, but at the time I was just thinking there's something wrong. It's like in the world as it should be is not the world where it is.
Yeah.
And that was very clear. And so absolutely that was a prompting of grace. And that was the backstory for why it happened, as silly as it was, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the Lord, I think. I don't know if he's got his means to get through to us. They're not the means that we would have thought of.
Yeah,
but he uses all kinds of things. And I actually think, did you have a fear of hell then?
No
fear of hell?
Not at all. No, that was not... I don't think. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah,
you just it was an observation about this world that
this world
it could be this. It's not that.
Yep.
But also this was personalized to you by the fact that you couldn't do it. You couldn't be good.
Oh yeah,
the good person that you wanted to be.
Oh yeah,
is that right?
Or just thought that I should be, and so that's when it was very helpful to then say, okay, now there's some marker, some precept that I now have by which to evaluate other things. Right? And so it was very easy for me to say, okay, so all that pagan, the Greco-Roman stuff, that's wrong because those gods are just as arbitrary as we are.
Right.
And they can't provide a standard. I mean, this is the classic Euthyphro problem, right? That Plato brings up, right?
Right.
And so that like, where does goodness even come from?
Had you read the
right?
Euthyphro
No,
at that point?
No.
Oh, so this is a felt experience of the problem of what is good and where did it come from?
Right, absolutely, but not in not a unique question is what I'm trying to say by referencing something very old, right? And so that was just immediately I could dismiss. Then the second thing was my father's faith, right? And from seeing the character of Allah as described in the Quran, that I was not convinced that he really was willing to be long-suffering in the way that the text sometimes claims. And so seeing the world as it was, as perverted as I was then experiencing it, I was thinking it just is unconvincing that Allah would actually let it exist for this long without
like going, knock it off, people.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Like, and just sending prophets wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't square with the character that was described of him. Like the story and the character didn't seem to mesh. And that was the problem.
Right.
And then I looked over at my mom's Protestant faith at the time and thinking, oh no, actually this story actually makes sense. And there's not, and instead of saying, as Allah does regarding your sin, do better, try harder, there was something that was substantially done to rectify that issue that Jesus Christ did on the cross. Because
do better, try harder is not an answer to sin.
No, it's not.
It doesn't solve the problem of sin. It doesn't heal the problem of sin.
Right.
But so you experienced the person of Jesus as offering that possibility?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it's a felt experience. This is not right.
Yeah.
It's a looking around. Well, what makes sense of that not rightness, or maybe could even address it? And the most appealing, convincing answer is the person of Jesus. That's
what I got. That was the best I could do, I think, at the time. And
it is the best you could do, actually, Jacob. Not at the time. That is the best you could do. No one's ever done better.
That's hilarious. I mean, I couldn't think any harder. I didn't have the capacity to think any more. Like, I didn't have any more training and such. Right? Yeah. But that was really, but that's what did the trick, as it were, for me.
It's interesting to me that it's so many people like who will say, we talk about this crisis of faith that we're in, the de-Christianizing of the world, and people will talk about a loss of a sense of sin as deadly, as spiritually deadly, that many people don't want what Christ offers because they don't experience or they don't acknowledge the experience of what it is that Christ heals, which is sin.
Right.
But somehow you had the felt experience of it. I wonder if there's anything in that we could take out, abstract from your experiences to help, because the fact is, a lot of people say, I'm a good person.
Right.
And we don't want to say, well, you're not a good person, but we want to say, are you a good person in the way that you think like genuine goodness is? Because there's clearly a lot that's good about you, but I'm a good person is not an answer to life.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, and it's a bit silly, right?
Yeah.
Because if you actually take somebody out of the context of talking about spiritual things, religious things, they're not going to tell you that they're a good person. They're going to tell you most of the time that like, I'm struggling with this. I'm anxious all the time.
Right.
I don't have a great relationship with my mom.
Lighting up a cigarette, drinking a whiskey, going, I'm a good person. I go, okay. Really?
No. But I really think it's like you take them outside that context
that's a good point,
metaphysics, and they're going to say, my life's in ruins.
Oh, that's right. That's right, Jacob. Yeah. Okay.
So I think a part of a thing that was helpful for me was that youth pastor didn't tell me, we're all sinners and you're going to hell and you need the hope of Jesus Christ. Is like, well, would he be wrong to say that? Obviously not.
No, he would not, but it would not be effective if he said that.
What was truly effective was me realizing the truth of that claim that he never made.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is, I think, one of the things that I love about Catholicism in particular. The Protestantism does not do a good job of is recognizing that this is a world that was made to live in. and that it was made to live in, to build structures, to build societies, to build cities in such a way that they give explicit and implicit glory to the Holy Trinity. And if we're not doing a good job of that, then it's going to have social ramifications. And the kind of the effects of our sin are something that we need to do a better job of pointing out and identifying as Catholics, to say, these social structures that we're building, whether it is like, big pharma or big tech or whatever you want to call it, that we just all see as a real problem that is inimical to our freedom, inimical to our joy, inimical to a hope for something beyond. We have to talk about those as the results of our actions, and that those are things that are making us unhappy, and that we are participating in creating them implicitly by entering into the structures and actually enabling them to exist through our purchases and our behaviors, through our lack of families. And that something along those lines would actually be relatively helpful of saying, not just we need to choose a different social order, but we actually have to have a lodestar. We have to have a North Star by which we create something practical, something concrete, something actual in the world that we can all identify as a problem and also as a solution, right? And we don't just get those solutions by following the next God king or political ruler. We have to ground it into something that's more eternal. And I think there's real hope in that. So I mean,
a couple of things about that. First of all, the thought occurs to me that the place that I experience this most acutely, what you're describing, and I'll share it with you so that you can correct me if I'm not getting right what you're saying, is in airports. That airports are inhuman environments that almost every human has to pass through. Who made the decision to make them the way they are? Who made the decision that these had to be basically low quality shopping malls where everyone's miserable, where there's no fresh air, where there's no materials that come from the earth, everything is manufactured. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That who made that decision? Well, the reason that airports are what they are, to me, they're a metaphor for the whole thing that we're doing because of the choices we have made.
Right.
Will my metaphor work, or am I off? Am I wrong?
I think that's a great example. So if you think about kind of this, what are the symbolisms of airports, right? It is like symbolically represents the transientness of human life.
Right.
And we all experience this as Americans. Sorry if we're now kind of getting too far into the weeds on this. But
the weeds is where I want to be. Okay, I love the weeds that you get into.
Take this as an example, and I want to ground it back before I get into further. Is to what we were saying is that to be convinced that I'm really a sinner in need of grace, that I need to practically know that the world's not what it should be, and that I'm part of the reason why it's not what it should be. I need to be experientially convinced of that, right?
Yes.
And so take the example of that airport. It's like what is an airport? Well, it's a place where somebody can go very far away from home. Right? That's what it is, right? And so therefore it's a symbol of the transientness of our modern culture, right? And we all experience this. The places where we're born and raised is often not the places that we now live and work, right?
Oh, absolutely. Right.
And so the airport is kind of a symbol of that larger problem in American society.
Impermanence, transience, disconnection, atomization, all those things.
Right, exactly. And so you think, well, why is it that we are so depressed and anxious and on meds today? Well, there's many reasons, but a big one is that we don't have any actually don't have any friendships, right? Friendships take time. They take patterns of life that mean that I am completely dependent on you and you are completely dependent on me.
Right.
That we have built up these habits of self-giving towards others that are based in a memory and a history that takes a long time to build up. Right? Friendships actually take time because, what are they? They're actually habits. Friendships are habits of integrating your life with another. Right? That takes time. that have that happen.
You can't just be popping around jet setter with real friendship.
That's right. That's right.
And is family a form of friendship?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this impermanence has struck the family as well. This constant.
Yeah, St. Thomas Aquinas, of course, famously says that friendship and charity are really the same thing. They're logical differences for the essential phenomenon. So just if you think friendship, think love, right?
Yeah.
And so what more?
It's a loveless world we've built.
Right, exactly.
That's the problem.
Right, because you don't have regularized or like customary. Help me with a more normal word. You don't have standard, regular habits of self-giving to the same people over and over and over again. This is why the sacred tradition has always commended that we live in cities that are identifiable locations, right? Not because it's like they're ideologically committed to a localist idea, but the Catholic tradition has always said that we should live in places that are identifiable because that sets the occasion for virtue.
I'm going to pose you a problem though here.
Please.
Because here's another problem. Other than airports, here's my other big problem with the modern world. In the last month, I've been in Duluth, Minnesota. I've been in Covington, Kentucky. I've been in Fresno, California, and at where the freeway meets the town. Everywhere you go in America, same 4 restaurants. Change out one or another. Okay, it's an Arby's. It's not a Hardee's. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You go to the mall, it's the same stores.
Right.
There's a sameness everywhere. Like for some reason, the place that shocked me the most was Kentucky, because Kentucky has a personality. You know, as an American, when you think of Kentucky, you have a place in mind.
It's like the only state that really has a particularity about it. It's like horses and whiskey. Like there you go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And people out in hollers and all that. It doesn't look like that. It looks like Cleveland and Des Moines and Spokane. It looks exactly the same. So I can stay in my town.
Right.
But my town is like every other town now.
Right. Right. It's the same phenomenon with like Americans traveling abroad and like wanting a little taste of home. And so they go to a coffie shop because everybody's still
they go to McDonald's. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Where they go.
Yeah, because they all look the same.
Which I don't think wanting a taste of home from time to time that's not an evil, but the fact that I can be, walking through the medieval streets of Rome and there is literally a McDonald's in that little medieval neighborhood, that's weird.
Well, take the lesser extreme that you just posed. So the problem that you're identifying, right, is that why is it that you can go anywhere in this expansive country that we live in and walk into a city and it look, oh my goodness, so much the same as the one that's 2,000 miles away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then there's the question of how did it get that way? Is that actually a problem? And then what is the church? Does the church have any principles or precepts that we can use to analyze it?
But right? I think weren't you saying it's a problem when you're saying
I do think it's a problem
that local and long term and with roots and all if those are essentials to truly human living, then the McDonald's on every corner is actually a problem. I'm not against McDonald's.
Why is it a problem? I mean, I think it is, but because I don't think we've gotten to the reason yet.
Because it makes, I think I'm borrowing this from Walker Percy, but it makes every place a no place.
Yeah, right.
I think that's what he said about it.
So let me push you even further. Why is having every place look the same lead to it not being any particular place? Why? How does that happen? A, and then B, why is that a problem?
I associate it with, as a matter of fact, I have a talk that I give about this, about the Harvey girls. Do you ever heard of the Harvey girls? The Harvey was the first guy that dressed all of his employees in the same clothes and fed the same. Like the Harvey House restaurants were everywhere the railroad stopped out here in the West. Oh, cool. So he was in the 19th century. He was the Ray Kroc of the 19th century.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that since Harvey, everything has become more about efficient systems and identifiable brands, so that people no longer feel they live in a natural world. They feel they live in an artificial environment. And that's what I think is the problem. McDonald's is more artificial than it is natural. And I do think that that's a problem, especially when it's not to say that something fabricated is bad. It's to say that when the same thing is being fabricated and imposed on the landscape everywhere, that you've lost a human factor to it. You're not buying. I feel like you're not buying what I'm saying.
Well, no, I think it's right. Here's where I because obviously I agree with your conclusion. I just want to get there in a sound way.
In a way that's not as stupid as the way I'm getting there? Is that what you're saying?
I think, look, like God gave us the world in the beginning, right? You know, it's like he created the world. He then sets man in it, and he commands him to till and to keep, right? You know, this is like the only story in the ancient world where God gives man work prior to the fall, right? I mean, that was you see it, think about it, like for the ancient Greeks, it's like there was the fall, like this divorce between the gods and man, and then because of that
now you got
shot relationship, then they're going to make you work and turn you into slaves and such, you know. So that is a big difference from Catholicism, which says no, work was not a curse. Work is a gift, right? And so that means that what does that imply? I mean, many things, obviously. A big one, of course, is that man was given the natural world to turn it into, and I don't mean this in a negative way, an artificial one, right?
Yes, I don't dispute that.
No,
Jacob.
I know
right.
you do. Obviously, you just said that fabrication's not good, or not bad. Excuse me. That the distinction between more and more of an artificial world versus a natural one is where I'm balking slightly to say, well, it's what is the nature of the artifice that we're making? Is it particular to us? Does it reveal a particular type of relationship, right, to one another? And this is something that's hard for us to envision. But you know, I love my wife so much because she's not anybody else, right? You know, part of the reason why I love her so much is because she stands out, right? You know, think about the Song of Songs, right, where the beloved is singing like the apple tree amidst the forest is my lover amongst men, right? This is like you can walk into a forest and there might be so many
beautiful.
That's so great. It's just
great.
It's like there is something different about this tree, man. You know, it's not the same, right? And that's that's how I feel about my wife, right? Is that she just stands out amongst everybody, and so there's something unique and wonderful. And as a result, we start to build up our life in a way that's also unique and hopefully also wonderful, right? And that particular pattern of self-giving is going to make us look different than everybody else. Well, then move outside the relationship of the husband and wife. That obviously is true about the kids. That should be true about the neighborhood. That should be true about the city. And not a city taps out at a certain point. It can't just sprawl forever.
These are nation states, these cities we have now.
Exactly, right, yeah. And I think there's more ways to analyze that too. But what we've created is not what you go and see on the English countryside, where there is a city with a whole bunch of houses, there's farmland all around it, and you have to walk there to the next one where there's another city, where there's another clump of buildings, right? And that's a little ways away, right? You can never tell where our cities start and where our cities end. And
that's right. We have to put up signs. Leaving, San Diego County or something like.
And that's the only way that you would ever know, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's crazy. And St. Thomas, in his treatise on kingship, says that part of the way that you will know that a city loves money and sets it as its proper end, like its purpose of existing, is that you'll never be able to tell where one city ends and
really,
another
begins.
Saw
that.
He sees that.
Wow, wonderful.
800 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, amazing mind, right? So that is definitely a telltale sign that our cities are in love with money. Why does he say that? Because everybody's going to be a merchant, like meaning that everybody's going to be principally dealing with money as their mode of occupation rather than building and supplying things or growing and raising things that you're then handing off to another, right? That we are all become middlemen, right? That's what a merchant is. And so insofar as we've entered into this cash nexus or this monetary economy, and we're dealing with money, we want to make sure that the flow of money to the next town is as seamless and as easy as possible. And therefore, we're going to be building up businesses all along the way to the next place. And therefore, the next place, which is just another set of businesses, is going to be a seamless
And that's what I
transition.
see when so that's what you're describing, the roots of what I experience as unpleasant. Which when I go to Kentucky, I want it to be Kentucky.
Exactly.
I want to talk to people that don't have the mid-Atlantic accent, that have an actual accent. And then you do. Accents actually persist pretty well.
But they're diminishing. I mean, over the course of the last 100 years.
Have they diminished?
Oh, tremendously.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah. And part of that's television, right?
Sure.
It's just like
Everybody's got to talk like Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Right.
But you see here is like if you've set commerce and business as your proper end for the country, that's going to inherently be inimical to the life of the uniqueness of self-giving that I was talking about with my wife and my kids and my neighbors and our friends, right? Is that we're not going to get to a place that's really unique anymore because everybody is different. I mean, that's part of the glory of God. And when we talk about individuation or like the individual, that's the proper way of talking about it, that he is different from everybody else and therefore has a unique way of giving himself to another. Right? Now we just talk about it in this like insane way as if we weren't social creatures anymore.
No, right. Yeah. There is, and I do think people recognize this is insane how we're living. Not everybody does. Actually, there are a lot of people who will make justifications for this way that we're living. But now here, I actually have a dilemma at the moment, and I want to be quite open with you about the dilemma. Okay. Your ideas are so interesting, I will waste the time and not get to know you as a person in this interview. So I don't want you to think that I'm dismissing your ideas whenever occasionally I go back to asking you about you, because about 37 hours ago, I asked you about Walter Hooper, and you have we've never gotten to it. But but really, I feel like I could talk to you for days, Jacob. So I'm not, but I occasionally I want to bring it back to how did we get here?
I would love to talk about Walter. So I was, trying to get all the way to the point where I ultimately became a Protestant.
Okay.
And to make a long story short, I mean, this is actually where my story is very common, is that at some point I just saw that there is a problem in Protestantism. It's like, how do you have certainty, right? And for me, in a nutshell, it came about with two issues very close to every Catholic's heart, and that was the Eucharist and that was baptism. And I was asking all the people in my Protestant church, what are these things? And nobody could give me a sound answer. It's like, well, some people think that you baptize as an infant, others as an adult. Some people say that it's a body of Christ. They don't really know what that means. Some people think it's a really nice snack, for the Eucharist, right? It's like, well, these are big deals. I mean, this is a really big deal. Why is it such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal precisely because these were things that that Jesus Christ brought up and mentioned as a way of getting to know him. Yeah. And if I don't know what they are, then that means that there is a real barrier from me enjoying a greater knowledge of Christ, and that means inherently a more intimate relationship with Christ. Yeah. Right? The more that I know about my wife, the more I get to love her. Right? There's more about her that I know to love. Right? That's the same thing with God. Right? The more that I know about him, the more that I get to actually enter into divine intimacy with him. And this is
the essential offer that the Catholic Church makes to the whole world, but is in particular in this moment in history to Protestant people. That's good, but there's more.
Yeah,
there's something more that it's not a matter of we want to win an argument with you.
No.
And it's partly, I think, why Protestants are often much better at arguing than Catholics are. We're not trying to win an argument. We want you to have what we have, and you can have it. Anybody can have it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true or not?
I totally agree. Okay. I think that's the heart of it all.
Yeah.
I really think that's
and that so the Eucharist and baptism
were practical things that made me think more theoretically about how do we know what's true about this religion that we're enjoying, right? Because ultimately it comes back to that truly a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, right? Which is what all the Protestants are talking about.
Right.
It's like, if you actually want it.
You want that?
Yeah. Here you go. And so I didn't really know where to turn, and there was a couple of different things. For me, it's like, one, I knew that my philosophy teacher from high school had converted to Eastern Orthodoxy. The other thing is that I was reading all these medieval texts, and now in my freshman year of college, right? And so I called up my old philosophy teacher and I said, hey, how do you get around this? Because there has to be an answer. And he said, well, for us Orthodox, it's tradition, right? It's the unified voice of the church fathers speaking to tell us what it is that we actually believe. Okay, that makes good sense. So I became an Orthodox catechumen.
Did you?
I did. And so I'm going through catechesis.
And where are you now? London?
No, I'm in Texas.
Oh,
actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm in Texas. I went to Baylor University.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, good Protestant place. When I was there,
everybody that went to Baylor is happy they went to Baylor. I've never met somebody who's unhappy they went to Baylor.
Well, when I was there, they called it the Catholic Notre Dame. How great is that? Yeah.
You can't say that. Yeah. That's funny.
That was a big joke in the honors department in the philosophy department.
Okay, so you enter this again. I feel like sometimes your story is so typical. You enter the catechumenate of the Orthodox in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, again. Try to make it more interesting, Jacob. Make something up if you can't make it interesting.
Well, so then I talked to my old math teacher, who was an Anglican, from high school, and I said, it was just kind of shared where I was with him, and to be honest, it was an extremely uncomfortable time, not knowing what was actually real. I was back almost in middle school again, trying to saying,
right.
what do I latch onto to be able to make an evaluation? I don't even have the categories that I need to be able to analyze this thing, right? And so, so I was talking about tradition and all that stuff, and he, an Anglican, said to me, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? About tradition as being the first received truths from the apostles, right? But of course, things change over time. And the example that he gave me was what happens when Christianity moves from being a religion of the minority to a religion of the majority. Like, what happens to the empire, to Rome at that point? Are they supposed to just dismiss the fact that there is now the majority of citizens believe this one thing, and that their vision of the world is fundamentally different? It's like, don't things change then? And that just, when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, obviously things change then. And so that was the way that I was then introduced, without the term being used, to the development of Christian doctrine.
And of course, an Anglican.
Well, praise be to Jesus Christ. He is now, this math teacher is now a very happy Catholic. In the ordinary.
At the Catholic. I love the ordinary. It's just wonderful. What a wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is when I then became a Catholic catechumen, with not giving up the Orthodox catechesis. So I went through both catechetical processes for a number of months. and that was so helpful.
You were cheating on your catechism teachers.
Totally. Yeah.
You were unfaithful to your catechism teacher.
Yeah, I was dating two girls at once. Yeah.
Yeah, you were dating two churches.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I don't know what to make of that. But.
I always told them both, that I was searching. Right?
You were searching, but so what became decisive that made you a Catholic?
Yeah, two things ultimately sealed the deal for me. One was the papacy and Vladimir Slaviev's text on Russia and the Universal Church, very famous.
His basic solution was just go back.
Yeah,
wasn't
exactly,
it? And that was kind of
but he argues in such a way as to be very convincing to somebody who's Orthodox.
Okay.
Right. The mode of his arguments being from Scripture and from the Fathers is something that is very satisfying to somebody in that world. Right. And so that was very helpful. And then there was just a moment of extreme charity from somebody in the church that towards the Orthodox, because I was very uncomfortable where I was, like not knowing what was true.
Sure.
And so a mistake that I would often make was, or when I was around Catholics, I would say kind of negative things about the Orthodox and positive things about Catholics. And when I was around the Orthodox, I would do the same. I would say positive things about the Orthodox and negative things about the Catholics. Why? Because I was just so tired of not fitting in. Right?
I can see it. I mean,
it's
see
like
it, yeah.
so pathetic, but it was real, right? And
is it? It's not pathetic to be tired of not fitting in.
Yeah.
That's a perfectly normal human reaction.
Well, it does. It is a driver for us to settle somewhere,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of It's like the social vision of having an open mind.
Yeah.
G.K. Chesterton's like, why do you keep an open mind so that you can lock shut on something eventually?
Right.
It's like, why do you feel dissettled socially so that you might find your people,
right,
and be integrated.
Into it. So you were bad-mouthing the Orthodox to a Catholic.
To a Catholic, and the Catholic gave me a very insightful reason for why, in this case, I was bad-mouthing them for not developing doctrine. And they said, well, they've been under persecution for over 1,000 years. That's not a strong environment in which to develop doctrine. And that was so moving to me, his charity towards the other side. I thought, oh my gosh,
Isn't that funny?
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
So again, that made me even more disposed to receive the truth. Now, ultimately, it was a lack of development on Marian doctrine. That was the other thing, in addition to the papacy, that was really helpful for me to choose.
Were you attracted to Mary, repulsed by Mary, indifferent to Mary?
Indifferent to Mary, but it just didn't seem like you could leave her behind.
Okay.
Right. And so that was something getting over the Protestantism, and also just not really figuring things out. But it just seemed like one of those critical points that everybody agreed was important. And I knew that no matter what I was doing in the future, I had to have a loving relationship to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so whoever gave the most praise to her and thought most critically about it probably was going to be right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your mind is really something. It's interesting, the little kind of standards that you establish. But that's a perfectly reasonable standard, but who thinks of that?
So anyway, so those were kind of a couple of things. And then I did move to England. And that was, but I was still, a catechumen. And I arrived on a Thursday afternoon. We're finally getting to Walter Hooper here. And Friday...
Well, sorry, the interview's over.
Friday, I'm walking through Oxford, and it's just this extremely beautiful town. And I had been there once before because I'd lived in Cambridge for a couple of months and went over to Oxford to visit. But I'm still just wandering around, just so amazed that I get to be here. And I pass this building that has a sign out front, and it says, where Blessed John Henry Newman preached. He was blessed at the time, where Gerard Manley Hopkins was a curate.
Good Lord.
And where J.R.R. Tolkien was a parishioner. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to go there. Yeah. So the next, and it said, Saturday Mass, 10 a.m. So I thought, okay, great, I'll go. And I did go. And after Mass, I'm looking around for somebody with a collar on to speak about carrying on catechesis. And there was somebody with a collar, and he's talking to an old man in the back of the church. And so I kind of go up and I let them have their distance a little bit, but they beckoned me over and I told them my situation. Hey, just moved here, want to continue on with catechesis. And the man with the collar on said, oh, I'm actually not the one that you want to speak with. And he starts looking around, and the old man with him said, no, he's not the priest, he's the bishop. And I just didn't know what to look for. He wasn't wearing any purple. I can't remember a pectoral cross, but anyways, I probably just didn't know at the time. Probably it would be obvious to any Catholic. And he turns around and kind of, a little bit startled about being out. He says, well, this is the man of Oxford. This is Walter Hooper. And, of course, as you said, Walter was C.S. Lewis's secretary at the end of his life and then managed his literary estate after his death. And it really is the reason why C.S. Lewis is still well known. It really is the reason why C.S. Lewis is as well known today as he is. Lewis's books were all going out of print. Walter came up with this brilliant idea to bring everything back into print in the way in which he did it. That's a whole nother story. But we owe a lot to Walter for that. And I owe a lot to Walter personally because he was so excited to hear that I was a catechumen that he really took me under his wing. He taught me, really how to pray the Mass better. He taught me the prayers of the church in a way that was so paternal, so fatherly, so loving. I had just lost my father a couple years before, and he filled a paternal void in my life in a really profound way. And so some months later on, when I was coming into the church, Walter was my godfather. So,
wow. And what year was this?
2015, 10 years ago.
10 years ago, you came into the Catholic Church. And then when did you start criticizing the Catholic Church? How long after?
I had such rose-tinted spectacles on for the first few years. It was like every priest is a saint, Yeah.
Were you like the coming? This was the resolution that your life needed. Mm-hmm. You did feel I'm home now. Oh, when you came into the Catholic Church.
Oh, so much so. Yeah. Okay. And to be honest, like it's 10 years. It's only 10 years later, but that kind of neophyte excitement, it hasn't really left yet. So I really feel the same way that this is home. That these are my people, right? And I get to be a part of them now.
Well, I joke about you criticizing the church, but there is one thing that you are known for that I think you know what I'm going to ask you about. I started with, you don't believe Catholics should own stocks.
Well, in publicly traded companies, yeah.
In publicly traded companies. Yeah. But that's how most people own stocks.
That is true, but it's not the strong definition of it, like a right definition of it.
Okay.
Stocks in general.
So we can talk about that because I'm interested in that, and but I don't want to neglect to talk about St. Joseph's. Help me out.
The College of St. Joseph.
College of St. Joseph. Yeah. Okay. Which I think is a magnificent contribution you and others are making. And I also don't want to lose friendship because you started down this road of talking about friendship, and we need to talk about that a little more because that is. I read your colleague Andrew Willard Jones's book, The Church Against the State.
Oh,
and
brilliant!
Basically, that's a book about friendship.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
And he made me think about it in ways I had never thought about it before. So I do think all of you, and new polity. Mm-hmm. So, good Lord, there's a lot to talk about with you, Jacob. But this, at the heart of what new polity does is also the idea of friendship.
Oh yeah.
That this is a more or less thematic through line of your life and work.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so let's first of all just tell me about the College of St. Joseph the Worker. I just want to know about it.
The College of St. Joseph the Worker is, in a nutshell, a very rigorous 4-year liberal arts college that pairs together that training with training in the skilled trades. And because students get paid to train in the skilled trades, they graduate with their BA degree and with their journeyman's card debt-free. And so it's a radical new model in higher education that takes intellectually inclined and academically promising students and gives them what's equivalent to an honors college education in a way that they have no financial burden on the end at the end of it.
But they can also do something.
I think it's even more than doing something. I think that they not only have a way of providing for their families and a financially advantageous path forward, I think that they also have a way in which to instantiate the truths that they learned in the classroom in the world in a way that most students don't.
Right.
This is one thing that I get worked up about, is that these beautiful truths about what makes life most human get locked up in the ivory tower, and they never come out into transform the city that's around that tower. Right. Yeah. And now these students have a literal and physical means by which to change their industry, seeing it redeemed by Christ in a way that's manifest and clear to the world. And so I think in a nutshell, like you're just cutting to the chase, and I can make this argument later, that a liberal arts education is almost least wasted on a tradesman because it gives him a way of having independent means, which allows him to have more of an independent mind, which enables him to be more of a leader in his community. And that's what I'm so excited about, saying that this model of higher education that we've seen in the world, throughout the United States, I should say, that is broken and fragmented even at the good universities in terms of their business models, needs to be changed. And we cannot give up on higher education. The Catholic Church created the first colleges. The Catholic Church created the first universities. We cannot say that they've been co-opted. We have to say, those are ours. We're reclaiming them. And here's how.
How wonderful. And you're in Ohio.
We are. We straddle the Ohio River so we're in Steubenville, Ohio, and we're in West Virginia. Yeah.
Oh, part is in West Virginia. Oh, okay. And when did you start? When did the school actually begin to matriculate students?
Yeah, this very year. Yeah, fall 2024 is when we had our first matriculated students.
And how many do you have now?
We only took a class of 30. Okay. And so as to start small and to be nimble, first year startups should put themselves in that position. And I'm sure glad we did.
You have magnificent teachers. I mean, at least from what they're going to get a great education there.
Oh, I think it's quite an enviable one. I really do. You just mentioned Dr. Andrew Willard Jones a moment ago. I mean, he was somebody that, when I was at Oxford, it's like everybody had to deal with in political theology. It's like you couldn't not deal with Andrew Jones. Yeah. He's been called the greatest living political theologian by some of the top scholars, right? Yeah. He's our academic dean, right? At a college of 30 kids. I mean, it's insane, right?
Right.
Professor Mark Barnes is there. Professor Jared Goff, who is just, I think, to be perfectly honest, in terms of just speculative theology, I can't think of an American who's better and whose speculative theology is more precise, scholastic, and truly prayer than Dr. Jared Goff. He's arriving in the fall. I'm so delighted about that. Professor Mark Barnes. This is a place that we have a chance of building something new. It kind of sounds silly to say this, but because we're starting it new, we get to do what we want and said, well, let's just build the best possible institution we can think of. Let's go for it. And that's what
Good for you. Yeah. And so was it born out of New Polity? Or is it what's the association there?
Yeah, great question. So in a certain way of thinking about it, every university has a university press, right? Yeah. There's Oxford University Press, there's Cambridge, the Cambridge University Press. New Polity is in a certain sense our university press. So it's a completely independent institution that operates with its own juridical board and its own legal status. But that's the publishing house that the professors send their stuff to. And it is fair to say that the way in which New Polity is a think tank for Catholic social teaching is trying to radically think about how Christ redeems the social order, right? That drove us to think about all these other things. What are the other institutions that we could start to actually make a manifest difference in the world, to show the love of Jesus Christ to the world? The university was one of them.
Is it fair to say, New Polity is, it seems to me, again, correct me if I get these things wrong. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that at some level, New Polity is a reaction against the Protestantizing of Catholicism in the United States. That is, American Catholics began to take on the Protestant story of the relationship to creation. And that story is essentially a negative one. And I'm not, I don't want to say this in some insulting way, but I mean, many Protestants will tell you, look, this world doesn't matter, only the next world matters. Right. The Catholic Church has never said this world doesn't matter. That's right. Only that is. So it seems to me that you're trying to re-Catholicize American Catholicism.
I love how you phrase that. It's
What's
bingo.
Up?
Yeah, bingo, I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Because, you do find, we talk a lot about liberalism, whatever. These are technical academic terms. But what you're saying is what is right. Liberalism is the political philosophy of Protestants. So you're right to say that we're trying to reject those Protestant heresies and say, no, there's so much more treasure that the church has taught us. Chris Check and I were just chatting this morning about Leo the 13th's encyclical to America, saying, hey, you guys are making these big mistakes in the social order over there, and you have this amazing heritage. Don't leave that behind. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at New Polity.
I've never read that. I'll have to read that.
Oceana, I think.
Okay. Pope, I mean, it's not actually physically possible to read all of the encyclicals of Pope Leo.
Well, I just found out why.
No, don't say it on the air. Do not say. Well, all right. Now I have to say it. But Pope Leo drank fortified wine. That's what you were going to say, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's what it was fortified with. You'll have to look up on the internet. But this was a different time.
It was a different era.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm sorry.
He was also a very productive and holy man.
He was.
He was. So I'll have to read that encyclical to us here in the United States because I actually learned that years ago from the cardinal in now I'll forget his name, but in Chicago, passed away before. Cardinal George, he said that there was a problem of American Catholics were essentially Protestantized. Right. I can't remember his exact words, but and then when you start to think about that, you go, we don't hate Protestants, but we have this 2,000-year tradition. Why are we letting that go?
Right.
And Pope Leo, of course, is the kind of the modern nexus of that 2,000-year tradition because he tried to restate it for a world that was urbanized and industrialized.
That's right. Yep.
So what are we getting wrong as Catholics in America?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is that we don't think that Christ is actually the king. Right.
What a great statement. That's right. Yeah. Like we have that celebration at the end of every liturgical year.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that's about.
It's like, oh, that's a really nice title.
Yeah, it's a nice title to read that. Right.
And when you read the Gospels and that he's going to be governor of the world and stuff like that, it's like we don't sit to think about what that means. Like one thing that I love so much about the sacred scriptures and what the church tells us, like how to read it, is that we have to take our literal interpretation and then from there move to an allegorical one, or what's also termed as a symbolic interpretation. This is when you hear Scott Hahn and Jacob Bergsma doing their typological readings of the Old Testament into the New. So Isaac being bound is a type of Christ on the cross, right? So, but here's why I'm saying it. It's like if you're doing a symbolic reading, it's not just like you're playing connect the dots. It's like, oh, hey, there was a ram caught in the thicket, just as Christ has the crown of thorns on his head. With the symbolic, that's not really how it's done, right? I mean, there's something very right about that. But when the church tells us to have a symbolic reading of sacred scripture, what they're trying to say is hyper-focus on what the thing literally is.
Yes, right.
And then you'll be able to see a different dimension of it to make a connection to something else that's true, right? So then you have an essential connection to the life of Jesus Christ. So you have to think.
If you won't think symbolically, you literally can't understand the scriptures.
That's right.
You can't have a literal understanding of the scriptures if you, I got you.
That's right.
Okay.
It will be short-sighted.
That's very helpful.
Yeah. When you think about a king, like what a king is, we want to do that. You say, well, okay, he's not just a guy that stands around with a crown and a purple cape on. He is one that defines the pattern and order of your life. Like where you work, what your celebrations are, how the year, how industry moves, what are the business practices that are allowed, what's the laws that we follow. All of that is implied by a king. A king has a law that rules how we live, right? And that's what when I say that we don't actually believe that Christ is king, we just adopt what other people say without saying, no, first and foremost, the world is Catholic. Right? We take this understanding, it's like, that we go out into the public square and we have to shut our Catholicism behind. And that like what being a Catholic means at the workplace is being nice to your colleagues. And it's like that is, forgive me, but that's really quite pathetic next to seeing our Lord and Savior crucified on a cross. There's something more that he is trying to invite us to. I mean, this is the same thing about when we were talking, you're saying a moment ago about Protestants, and our invitation to them. It's like, if you want a more profound and deeper relationship with Jesus Christ, look here.
Yeah.
And that's what Leo the 13th and all these greats have invited us to. So actually, if you want a more profound, hey, Catholic, if you want a more profound and intimate relationship with Jesus Christ, who is your king, look over here, because there actually is real ways in which we're supposed to live differently, build different institutions, change our business models so that Christ's identifiable thumbprint might be seen upon them.
Wow. All this matters. Like it's
very practical.
Yeah.
It's like we should take again, not to just, I'm doing this as an easy example, like take the matter of a college. If we are graduating our students up to their eyeballs in debt, then we're clearly not listening to the church.
Yeah.
It's like a no-brainer.
Right.
Okay. Take the matter of like medical bills or something like that. Same problem, right? It's like, how can we now hang your health over your head as something that is now paying for it, meaning is something that's going to be so anxiety-inducing. Now, that is not, you can't make a quick jump to say, therefore, we should socialize healthcare. It's like that. No, that's sloppy thinking.
No.
But we have to just see these big problems and then say, okay, we really have to enter into a philosophical consideration with the fundamental aid of revelation to be able to answer these social problems.
Okay, so now how do you deal with there is a criticism of social justice-y Catholicism.
Oh, yeah.
And the criticism of it is it stays on the horizontal horizon. This is the common criticism.
Yes.
And it forgets the vertical.
That's right.
Okay, so now I don't know if that graphic is entirely precise, but that is the critique that's made.
I think that's a critique for most social justice.
How are you not just repeating that mistake? If you're saying like we're to transform this world, that's part of our job. That Christ is the king of this world. That kingship matters. We're to transform it and make it a place that's fit for his children. Then how are you not just staying on this plane and doing the same thing that the social justice-y,
so let's just make sure that it's clear is that there are always opportunities to sin.
Well, that's helpful. Thank
you. We can certainly make that mistake, right?
Yeah.
But we were just not being faithful to actually providing a true social elevation and sanctification.
Yeah.
If it's not first a quiet reception of the truths of Jesus Christ and the person of Jesus Christ, right? We don't want our social order to be better just so that things are easier. We want our social order to be better so that it's easier to fall in love with Jesus.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Right? So if you are up to your eyeballs in debt and you're working all the time and you're not getting adequate hours with your family and you're so tired when you come back from work that you're not praying with your kids, you're not catechizing your kids. It's like, yeah, it's you like, look, there's not an excuse for that, but also your work environment, the financial system is not making it easy for you to be a good father to your kids.
Well, Peter Morin said the goal of the Catholic worker was to make the world a place where it's easier to be good.
Right.
Would you agree with that goal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I just want to be more explicit about what good means. It means being head and over heels in love with Jesus Christ and letting that pour out into the love and friendship that you show to everyone around you.
Right.
Yeah.
This could be kind of a tricky question because there's always I've got nostalgia for the Middle Ages, and in some ways, I think I do have nostalgia for there's some stuff that I go.
Can I just say this? There's that book on being human that is a collection of Fulton Sheen's little newspaper articles. All 2-3 pages. They're just brilliant, and they're like piercing and wonderful. And he wrote one on hair shirts. It's like really uncomfortable thing. And he's like, in the Middle Ages, people needed to wear hair shirts because life was so good.
What a great take.
In America, we don't need them because life is so anxiety.
Just go to an airport. You don't need a hair shirt.
How great is
Just go to Costco. You don't need a hair shirt. That's a wonderful observation.
It is, and it's also kind of startling because we think, wait, life in America, this is like the pinnacle of humanity. Life has never been better than it is right now. What are you talking about?
Well, that's what I want to. So I want to avoid the nostalgia because people will go, "Oh, well, I like a CAT scan." Okay, I like a CAT scan too, but we're not talking about that.
Can I give you an example of this? Because I agree, like, that we should not be. Look, if we're just nostalgic, then I would say that we're just trads. That are looking back at a world.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
It is a bad thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no way that you can be a rad trad and it'd be okay. Yeah. You know why? Because then you're not actually into tradition.
Say what you mean, Jacob.
Yeah. Because you're not actually into a living tradition.
Okay.
You're into a dead tradition of what somebody once did.
Okay.
Right? And so this is where I'm not hating on people that go to the traditional mass at all. That's not at all what I'm saying. Saying is that mindset of saying we're holding on to something that once was without saying that it's living and active now, right? Ever ancient, ever new, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing, let me take the example of building, right? It's like this is part of my industry, right? Is the building trades. Building is not in a good place today, right? The average longevity of a house is 30 to 70 years, right? That's as long as a house lasts. You go back a few hundred years, houses were made to last hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
The response time that a firefighter has for legacy houses, traditionally built houses, is or not even traditionally built houses, just having like not nominal 2x4 but real 2x4. There was actually 2 by 4.
I know. Yeah, that's a big controversy here in California for a while. There was lawsuits over that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said you were using 2x4s and those are not 2x4, and they're not. Yeah, they're not even close to 2x4.
No, they're not.
All right.
But also with the synthetic materials and stuff like that, if from an incendiary moment, saying like a cigarette is on the sofa, to actually being there a flashover moment,
right?
The fires everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Firefighters had up to 29 minutes to respond. For contemporary built houses, you know how long it is?
No.
They have between, because the houses do vary, 3 to 7 minutes.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, and you even talk about the ways in which we're building trusses today. Firefighter mortality is up with outstanding numbers because of the roof systems that we are now creating. Building is not in a good place today, right? So what can we say then? Oh, we're only doing traditional building methods, right? It's like we're only timber framing, we're only doing mass masonry. Look, I think we need to bring back both of those things, right? But if we're ignoring the developments, the real developments that we've had in technology and tools, then we're actually being foolish, not only in refusing to say goodness where it actually is, but also refusing to say, no, this is living and active. There is a synthesis of what we can do. We don't want to just do what our fathers did, which we have to do, right? That's loving our fathers, is receiving the wisdom that they gave to us. But what's also honoring to our fathers? That we take their work forward as well. That's what you want for your kid. I don't want you to just do what I did. I want you to take this base that I've given you and think about it more, to be able to do it even better than, that's what every father says about their kid. It's like, I want you to do even better than me, man. And that's part of the way that...
So you can use rebar in the foundation. You don't have to go, in the old days when they really built these good, there was no rebar in the foundation.
Like we've just found out in 2017 that like salt water is better for concrete. And it's like, but our fathers didn't do that. This is should that be an addition that we've...
Do they really find that out?
Yeah.
That's not just like a thing you made up?
No. This is like why Roman concrete is superior to...
Because they use salt water?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that it's a superior composition, right? So I guess technically that's an ancient thing. But think about just the invention. I love the combustion engine. I really like power tools, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things that we're missing by using... particularly the latter, the power tools, in terms of there's a loss of dexterity. I grant that. You need to be able to use both tools because that is part of the formation of the person, right? But we don't build just to build ourselves. That's true. That's actually the principal reason why we build, so that we build new habits, we build new virtues. But we also build to house families, and we got to do that too.
You can't use a hand auger on every building. You won't have enough houses for people.
Right, exactly. Don't think about like productivity even. Don't even think about profitability. I mean, those are not things that you can ignore. They're very important, but you have to think about what we're trying to provide something. Like for instance, like one of the clients that so the way that the College of St. Joseph is set up is that we have the college that trains everybody in the skilled trades and principally in the liberal arts. And then also we have a construction company that our students work for, right? And that's how they get their on-the-job training hours, and which pays the students to continue the trade.
What a model.
It's pretty fun. One of our clients is a guy that has Parkinson's, right? It's like he needs his house now. We're building it on the same property as his son, which is awesome. Like father son right together, so that the parents can be taken care of by the younger generation. It's so beautiful, and so but the guy's like hurting. He's physically declining. We got to move fast. The methods that we've developed over the century or over this past century really aid him directly.
Yeah.
Right. That, I think, is how we need to be thinking about the social order as a whole, right? And not just having this nostalgia for Christendom. It's that we can't just say we're ignoring what our direct fathers and grandfathers did, and we're just jumping over to our distant ancestors. As good as they had it, according to Fulton Sheen, right? We have to say, no, we are American. We've inherited something good. We now need to go through the hard work of discerning the good from the bad, the wheat from the chaff. And there is something wonderful about being American. We have to identify what the best parts of it are and what the best things that we've developed, and to cling to them, because that is part of who we are. We cannot deny that ourselves. If we do that, we're not only denying the love that our Father showed us, but we also are denying the love that our Heavenly Father has showed us as well.
There used to be years ago, probably 30 years ago, there was a conversation. I think it was mostly among what were called the theocons of coming. You remember the theocons?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, like George Weigel and Richard Newhouse and
neocons.
They were called the theocons because they were all Catholics.
They just happened to be neocons as well.
Yeah, but they used to talk. They used to. I think it was Richard Newhouse, God bless him, who used to say that there was a Catholic moment coming. I don't remember if it was him. I may have the wrong one, but in America and now I don't know if he meant like 6 of the 9 Supreme Court justices would be Catholic. That's something we don't want to talk about because I'm afraid somebody will. I don't know that'll contribute to a persecution or something. But do you think that we have, like, when you talk about this love of America? And because it is there is a thing about loving what you've received, and a community is a thing received, a place, a language, a people, a set of habits, all those things. But are you saying that to say that Catholics need to have a moment where they contribute to that? Even I would say to a transformative degree. There is something that we received, but it needs a moment of transformation. It needs something to turn it into so it can really reach its potentials.
I think it's a very profound transition that we need. Like, there is a real room for repentance.
Not a revolution. Not like we don't need another French Revolution or American Revolution or something like that.
That's foolish and self-absorbed, I would say, right? But
it's never stopped me.
Yeah. but there is some real repentance, right? And repentance, as Christ calls us to, is changing our mind, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that we have been thinking about in a modern kind of neo-pagan way that we need to be thinking about in a profoundly Christian way, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And I think that we can go through a really long list of that. Do I buy just what's let's take some of these principles, right? The church teaches that we should prefer those who are closer to us than those who are better, right? Because those who are closer to us, we have more reasons to love them and more ways to serve them, right? Okay, maybe we can apply that principle, and I'm skipping some steps here, right? From just to give some examples. that applies to small businesses, right? Because that small business owner is in my town. He's not just somebody that I buy meat from. He's in my parish. His kid is on the same baseball team as my kid is on, right? It's like we prefer him because he's part of us. And there's more reasons to prefer him, not because his products are necessarily better or even cheaper, but because we take care of our own, right? John Paul II very beautifully wrote that we should never be paid for something that we haven't added value to, right? So that makes a big...
Where did he write that? That sounds un-American to me.
I know, multiple places, and Centesimus Annus is a great one. Go look there at paragraph, section 43 or something like that, I think was where it is, right? It's like, okay, well, just as you said, like all of our get-rich-quick schemes, it's like, well, that's not really a Catholic mentality, right? What we need to think about is, how do I, first and foremost, add value, real value, to families in America? That's how we should be thinking about our business. What about investments, right? Same Pope, the great John Paul II. He wrote in the same document that he gave us the proper definition of investing, right? No, I think about investing as something, or I used to at least think about investing as a way of making my money work for me and grow, right? He says the proper definition of investing, to invest, is to give people an opportunity to make good use of their labor. Whoa, that's a completely different way of thinking about investing as well, is that what I'm actually doing when I put money somewhere behind a new business is actually I'm giving somebody the chance to take his potential and activate it. I'm literally vesting him with power that he did not have before. And so there is a work-centered focus with investing. I'm enabling better and more work to be done that will ultimately, hopefully, help American families, right? So we can go through a litany of these things. Those are 3 quick examples that I can give about ways in which the church has given us to think that will then go forth to change our behavior.
And there's just so many ways I could go with you, Jacob. I hope we'll get to talk many times more in the future. And I don't want to keep you from Mass. We have Mass in 15 minutes.
Oh, great.
So I want to circle back because you agreed with me that it is the through line of what New Polity does. And I think the themes of what you do and what your kind of work is this idea of friendship. And there's a terrible loneliness in the world. I really have gone into some of these big box stores a few times and felt like I don't know if I've ever had an anxiety attack, but I think I could have one in here. Like you just have this feeling of overwhelmed, and you look around and people don't look happy there. They look really intense. I don't know what their own interior emotional experience is, but there's lots of goods there. I don't want to minimize those goods, but I don't think those are good places. So how does friendship transform what we've got? If we pursue this idea of friendship, if we take seriously that we are made for friendship, certainly Christ himself, friendship is the theme of what he does. I no longer call you slaves, but friends. Yeah. So if we've been offered this friendship with Christ himself, friendship with God through him, and so then I would think that the meaning of Christian life then is that we are liberated to be truly friends to one another. Yeah. How do we live then now? How do we... Just answer that, and then I'll let you go. How do we live? How do we live now? I didn't know that's what I was coming around to, but...
Look, friendship is a scary thing, right? Because we are all so addicted to relying on systems that don't fail us, rather than people who can.
Right. Okay.
And so just like, when you're getting married, it's like, oh man, I'm giving this person the chance of hurting me more than anybody else in the entire world.
Oh, and she did. Oh, no. I'm sorry. That was personal. I shouldn't have got into that. Okay, go ahead.
Right. I mean, that's what happens, right? We all still, I shouldn't say all, like we still get married, right?
Right.
and there's other reasons why we like they're stronger. Like that's the strongest. Like God designed marriage in a natural way that we would not easily reject it, right? We still do, and we're seeing that all the time, even to the point of like, like in modern culture, calling our spouses our partners, which is ridiculous. It is because it's not like if you're, I mean, just think about like a partner in a business. Like if you don't meet expectations, you can get ousted.
I hadn't thought about that.
Right?
Yeah,
it's like you don't keep up. But it's like it's so often in a marriage where somebody is not. I mean, the two are not doing 50% of the work. It's like 90-10, or it swings 70-30, or there's this violent switch where somebody gets hurt and they can't do anything. It's like, it's just a terrible way in which to use words, because then it actually changes the way in which we think about the expectations of the other. So so we are like harming marriage, but marriage is a chance of which we are giving somebody a chance to hurt us profoundly, in order to see them grow in humanity and us too, which is the essence of that is self-giving and love, right?
Yeah.
True humanity is revealed by Jesus Christ, who gave himself even to the end, right? We are unwilling to make those types of vulnerable friendship decisions with others. And that is what's tough. And that's probably that fear of being hurt by somebody or not being trusted by somebody is a way in which we do it. So, so we actually have to ensure that before we just jump into this, we have to make a cognitive decision that I am going to be willing to be bothered profoundly by somebody else, and I'm going to be willing to bother somebody profoundly to actually find friendships. I often use the example that taking from the principle that St. Thomas Aquinas gives, that that money takes a place for where friendship lacks. So to give you an example of that, I could either pay a moving company to help me move my piano or something like that, or I could call my friends to move the piano for me. In either case, I am still just as dependent upon other people. It's just whether or not they're people that I know versus I don't know, somebody that I'm going to have a continued relationship after the event or not, right? I mean, yesterday I got on the plane to fly here, and apparently I'm not joking, my chimney fell off my house.
That's not even possible. I don't think that could happen.
It's like one of these like metal things and whatever. I was just so embarrassing. I'm such a bad homeowner. But, by the time I landed...
You're the guy that founded the College of St. Joseph the Work.
I know.
And your chimney fell off?
I know. It's so embarrassing. Well, anyways, there's reasons for it, but it's terrible. You can tell I put it on myself, right? It's been up for over a year, whatever. I can just make bad excuses for myself. But by the time I landed, not only had it fallen, but also 3 of my friends scaved off work to help my wife, and it was already back up.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah,
right.
So of course that's the cachet of not using cash, right? That's a friendship that spans any felt sense of monetary debt, right?
Right.
They did not go to work. They were not making money, right? Yeah. They came and helped my wife and my kids out, right?
Yeah.
Because we heat exclusively with wood at our house too, so it's actually kind of a necessary thing.
yeah, right. Well, the temptations against friendship though are so powerful. I mean, when you talk about all the time we talk about this loneliness epidemic, and I think it was Patrick Deneen made the point, one of the reasons we have a loneliness epidemic is people chose this. People chose their machines over other people.
That's right.
They chose a life of travel and adventure over having children. Like we don't want to be mean to people, but the honest truth is a lot of this stuff we chose. We chose this isolation, and it's so much easier to be isolated. It's so much easier to relate to Netflix than to human beings.
That's right. Yeah, and I'll just take a very controversial example, because that's what I do, I guess. But I had the great honor of talking to Ted Benna, who is the inventor of the 401k. and he's a really good Protestant man, and he profoundly regrets his invention.
Really?
Which has taken over America, right? I mean, who doesn't have a 401k, right? And he says that it's a monster, and he wants to blow it up. And when he asked why, he says along the way is that that families in America are not what they once were. When asked, it's like, well, what did people do before the 401k? He said it was never a problem. Nobody thought about it. It was like at Christmas dinner, you'd have a conversation behind your mom's back about how you're going to take care of her with your siblings.
And he thinks that we don't have that because we have this other luxury, so to speak.
Right. Well, now retirement's your own problem. Instead of your kids figuring out behind your back at Christmas, now you have to be calculating. You have to be an accountant, like figuring this out and making these projections and guesses about what life is going to be like in the last 10, 20 years, right? And he's saying that there's a perfect example of St. Thomas's principle, how friendship is, how money is taking place for where love lacks, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to make I'm not deriving from this, therefore we should blow up 401ks, right? I think there's other arguments to be made there. I'm just showing how one social technology that we've created has radically transformed what we did before and made it more and more impersonal as time goes on, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep, more impersonal, right. I'm going to let you go to Mass. I do want to talk to you many times. Founder of New Polity.
Well, co-founder.
Co-founder of
I'll claim just founder for that one.
For College of St. Joseph the Worker. Congratulations on that. Father, chimney installer, theologian.
Poor chimney installer, clearly, yeah.
One thing you have made me feel good about is I am going to be entirely dependent on my children. So I feel good. I feel better about that now that I've spoken to you. Don't forget that, kids.
Yeah.
Jacob Imam, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What a great conversation. Thank you.